Hey, good morning. Good morning. This is Doc Martin. It's currently 4 a.m. and it was on my mind to kind of talk about something that a lot of people deal with and they don't know how or how it works or what to do about it other than take medication. Um, so I want to talk about diabetes, right? And traditionally with diabetes, there's type 1 and type 2. So I think a lot of people don't take it seriously because they don't know exactly what causes it. They don't know why they have it. And I feel by properly educating people on what it is that it's something that can be fixed, at least one. So type 1 diabetes is genetic. So you have this organ right around here, right in the middle, called your pancreas. Your pancreas, it makes insulin. Now, insulin is a hormone. Whenever you eat, whether it's sugar, protein, or fat, any meal you eat, your pancreas releases insulin. Okay, and there's a cell, whatever cells you have in your body, they have insulin receptors. So the insulin receptor is like a lock. Okay, so when the insulin is released from the pancreas after you eat food, the whole purpose is for that insulin to bind to that receptor. So it's almost like a lock and key, binds to that receptor, and it allows the sugar into the cell, or whatever, or the fat, or protein, whatever you're eating, allows that to go into the cell. That's how that works. That's the general way that works. Um, so when you have type 1 diabetes, that means you're no longer making insulin from your pancreas, which means that you have high blood sugar. And what diabetes means is you pee a lot, you urinate a lot. So that's why diabetics, they urinate a lot. And usually this is how people find out that they have diabetes, because they urinate a lot or they may be losing weight. And the reason you lose weight with diabetes is because since you don't have insulin, your cells are no longer taking up that sugar, and your cells have to take up sugar in order to make fat cells. So your fat tissue, it needs sugar in order to make more uh, fat tissue. So if you don't have insulin, then that's what happens, and that's diabetes type 1 when you're not making insulin. Now, we talked about the cell and the cell receptor, and we talked about insulin. So now we have type 2 diabetes. This is what plagues America right now. So type 2 diabetes, that's a diabetes where you have similar symptoms of peeing a lot, of urinating a lot, losing weight, eventually losing weight, but it's usually in overweight individuals. It's usually individuals that are overweight, not all the time, but most of the time, overweight individuals that have type 2 diabetes. The reason is because they eat so much sugar. If you eat too much sugar and your blood sugar is constantly high because you eat a lot of carbs, a lot of sweets, what happens is that because your blood sugar is so high, your pancreas, excuse me, it's early in the morning. Your pancreas is releasing so much insulin that the cells can get overwhelmed, because they're like, okay, there's so much insulin being released, there's so much binding of that insulin hormone to these cell receptors. The cell starts to say, hey, let's downregulate some of these insulin receptors so insulin won't bind anymore. And in that way, we won't take as much sugar. So then the cells, they start to downregulate those insulin receptors and take them off the surface of the cells to where when insulin comes, it can't bind. If insulin can't bind, then the cells can't take up sugar. So it's a defense mechanism at a certain point. So with type 1 diabetes, you're not making insulin, but in type 2 diabetes, you are making insulin. It's just your cells don't want to use it anymore because you're already overdoing it. Like blood sugar's always high. Your cells are saying we don't need any more sugar. Okay. Hopefully that made sense, but let's talk about why it's important. Um, so with type 2 diabetes, you have so many complications. It's almost like being a smoker, but in a different way. Um, Not only do you have increased risk for heart attack, reason for that being is when you have diabetes, that high blood sugar causes it crystallizes the lining of your arteries and veins. So it's called glycation. So advanced glycation end products, which pretty much is a sugar deposit. So the proteins that are on your cells, and your body's full of proteins, when your blood sugar is so high, it will actually bind to those proteins and kind of crystallize them. So what does that do? That means if your blood vessel normally has a diameter like this, then the diameter is going to get kind of smaller, right? And when your diameter of your vessels get smaller, that means less blood flow, right? And this is why having diabetes puts you at a greater risk for heart attacks, because your heart pumps blood through your arteries throughout the rest of your body, but your heart has its own arteries called the coronary arteries. But see, when you have diabetes and you have these advanced glycation end products, or your arteries are crystallizing, that's less blood flow that's getting to those coronary arteries, meaning that you had increased risk for heart attack, which is because your heart isn't getting the amount of blood flow it should be getting, which means it's not getting the right amount of oxygen it should be getting. So that's one thing. Um, Another thing is blindness, right? Vision changes. What else? Tooth decay. You had increased risk of fungal infections. For women, yeast infections. Um, Erectile dysfunction for men. Um, and erectile dysfunction specifically because in your penis, you need blood flow to get an erection, but when you have diabetes for so long, like you have crystallization in those vessels, and so they don't work as much anymore. Not as much flow, so that's why you get erectile dysfunction. Not only that, you get ulcers, you get um, digestive issues like constipation and gastroparesis. What gastroparesis basically means is that the nerves in your intestines aren't fully functioning, so they don't move. So your intestines, it doesn't move and digest your food like it should. So that's why you have a lot of diabetics that may have diarrhea with alternating constipation, and this is something that they didn't have before the diabetes. Um, Diabetes affects your nervous system, so this is why you have a lot of people with diabetic foot ulcers, because um, it affects the nerves. And if it affects the nerves, that's why you have an ulcer in your foot that you don't even know that was there. You don't know when you cut your foot. Um, You don't know when the circulation stopped, but all of a sudden you have an ulcer. And then you have numbness and tingling, like just in your lower feet, legs. Like diabetes causes so many different things. Um, so how do we fix that? First and foremost, you want to eat a balanced diet. And when I say a balanced diet, you want protein and you want carbs, right? Now, when we talk about sugar, sugar is not just white sugar. Sugar is not just candy. Carbs are broken down into sugar, right? So if you eat some potato chips, that's going to be broken down into sugar. If you eat bread, that's going to be broken down into sugar. So you can literally eat no candy and eat just savory food and still get diabetes. Let that be clear. You do not have to eat candy or drink Starbucks lattes or anything with a bunch of sugar to get diabetes. You can literally eat bread, crackers, rice. What else? What else? Pasta, wheat, cookies. Well, no, that's actually um, a dessert, but yeah, let's just throw in desserts in there. But yeah, things of that nature like bread, chips, rice, all those things. Those are all carbs, which are broken down into sugar, into simple sugars. And because of that, that's raising your blood sugar. That's raising your blood sugar. Over time, you constantly having that. That's how you give yourself type 2 diabetes. Now, type 1, you can't control. You can only treat. You can't control not getting it because it's genetic, but you can only treat with insulin. Now, type 2 diabetes, you can treat with type 2 diabetic medications. However, that diabetes can be reversed based off of your lifestyle and your diet. So, exercise, making sure that you exercising. I say give yourself 30 minutes a day, every day. It could be a walk around the block. It could be, you know, a sport. It could be playing basketball. It could be walking on the treadmill. It could be running on the treadmill. It could be elliptical. It could just do something that makes you sweat for 30 minutes a day. Number two, eat more protein than those carbs. Eat a balanced diet. We talked about protein and we talked about carbs. Now let's talk about protein. What is protein? So um, protein sources are chicken, beef, pork is a protein source, which I don't eat pork, but um, fish, peanuts, right? What else? Eggs, cheese. These are all sources that are mostly protein, and so that's a key thing. You want to make sure that you are getting protein as well as certain carbs. I would stay away from chips. Try to limit your rice. Try to limit bread if you can't cut it out. But if you're gonna have bread, have a piece of meat, have a vegetable, because vegetables are carbs. But see, they don't give you a high sugar spike like chips, like simple carbs do. Like bread, like crackers, those are simple carbs. But complex carbs like vegetables, fruits, those are complex carbs, right? Another thing I forgot to mention, orange juice, but orange versus orange juice. Orange juice is high in sugar because there's no pulp. I mean, you might have some pulp in it, but like it's all the sugar and juice is squeezed out into a liquid form. So because of that, like it's a lot of sugar. Whereas if you have a regular orange, that is actually has the pulp, it has everything just how nature made it, just how God made it. So because of that, you can eat that and not get the same sugar spike you would get with the orange juice. And so when a lot of people talk about juicing and thinking they're doing something healthy, they're really not. I mean, yeah, you're getting vitamins, but you're getting concentrated sugar because really, in all, naturally, you're not supposed to be just drinking juice like that. And you'll notice a lot of people that do that gain weight easy. Like when you try to juice and lose weight, you find it hard because you'll find it hard to do by juicing while you're trying to lose weight because like it's just a bunch of insulin spikes because there's a bunch of sugar spikes. A sugar spike follows an insulin spike, and then you build up fat cells. But when you eat protein along with the carbs, you have a lower sugar spike. Sugar doesn't spike like this. If you eat something, if you eat carbs by themselves, like you eat a bag of chips, sugar spikes like that. But let's just say you ate a piece of chicken first, which is a weird combination, but just humor me. If you ate a piece of chicken first and then you ate some chips with it after, sugar would spike maybe like that. Both will release insulin, but not as much, right? And it's all about balance. The problem in society now is that our carbs are more readily available than protein. Protein, when you think about, if you go into a gas station right now, what are you gonna have? You're gonna have Nestea. You're gonna have carbs. That's carbs. You have liquid carbs, Nestea, orange juice. You're gonna have Nestea carbs. Um, like carbs like popcorn, chips, Oreos. What else? What else? Just everything. Snack cakes, ice cream, anything you can think of. 99% of what you're gonna find in a convenience store are carbs. But see, if I'm on a road trip and I'm like, I need a protein source, when I did eat beef and pork, it would be okay. Let me get beef jerky, but that's not good because it has nitrates in it. But I'm just giving you an example, right? You can get beef jerky, right? Or if they have like some stores like 7-Eleven have like two boiled eggs, great protein source. I can get that. You know, um, some peanuts because peanuts have more more protein than carbs. Um, when you're trying to find a protein source, you want to make sure that the protein that is, if you look on the nutritional facts at the back, the protein amount is higher than the carbs. So if you have 9 grams of protein and total carbs are 5 grams, okay, that's great. Um, but a lot of times you have to be wary because you'll see energy bars that say, hey, it's 20 grams of protein, but then you look on the back and then it's 40 grams of carbs, which is really twice as, if the ratio is 2 to 1 carbs to protein, so it's really a carbohydrate. But food companies don't care about you. I care about you. So I'm telling you, this works for getting your blood sugar under control. This works for getting your weight under control. It works for feeling better. It works for having less brain fog. Um, and so this is something that's important. Knowing the difference between a carb and a protein. For example, one more example, beans. Notice when I said protein sources, I didn't say beans. Beans are more of a carb than a protein. So when I'm from New Orleans, so people be like, "Oh well, I'm eating red beans and rice." I got my protein source from the beans, and then I got then I got the rice. That's the carb. So technically, it's balanced, right? Wrong. Beans are more carb than protein. Not like a peanut, which is more protein than carbs. Beans are more of a carb than a protein. And then you put it on white rice, straight carbs, broken down to sugar. So all of that is going to be broken down into sugar. Now, maybe not. The beans, since beans are a complex carbohydrate, you won't get that much of a sugar spike, but you will with the rice, and that puts you at a greater risk of getting diabetes. So yeah, so this is important, um, because if you're a normal person, you don't want to walk around not being able to feel yourself walking around. You don't want to. You don't want. If you're a man, you probably don't want erectile dysfunction. If you're living and you're alive, you probably don't want to have a heart attack. Um, if you can taste, smell, hear, feel, you probably want to see too. You don't want to lose your eyesight because you can't control your diet. You know, you don't want to be at risk of infections if you don't have to be, because this is all something that you can control. And I mean, show this to anybody if you may be a person with diabetes or who's pre-diabetic that needs to make that change. Um, Comment below if you have any questions or you need me to make another video. Or you could be a person that's health conscious and you need somebody to explain what diabetes is and how it works and how serious it is, to a friend or family member that's not taking it seriously. And really, I made this video because I come in contact with so many people that have health problems and they take medication, and they're like, oh yeah, I have it. I just, and it's sad because we have so many people that have diabetes that it becomes normal, and it's not. So I'm not about anybody losing their eyesight, getting erectile dysfunction, um, you know, damaging the digestive system, all because they are not informed, and all because a doctor spent 15 minutes telling them what they had but didn't really explain it. I think there's in the medical system, the healthcare system, um, there's some things that need to be repaired, but that's why I'm here. I'm here to educate and motivate and help and help people get serious about feeling better and living longer and functioning better and taking the time to actually embrace questions. And you know what I'm saying now is stuff that I say to people every day, but it's great that I can if somebody can watch this video and learn something that they didn't learn before and get a different perspective of why they should eat better and why they should avoid having diabetes and why you should watch your blood sugar. And because you don't want any of those things. You don't want to go blind. You don't want to be constipated, and you don't want to walk around with feet tingling and diabetic ulcers and yeast infections. It's not necessary. So anyway, take care. Pun intended. Take care of yourself. Um, that's all I got. This is Doc Martin signing out. Have a good night.